Hey solos, it's Samantha. So this is the character dining episode with hopefully no more technological issues. Thank you so much for letting me know. I've been really struggling with finding a better editor and host like online, not an actual person, because obviously I'm a great host. And so this was like the nail in the coffin, and I've switched over to a new podcast hosting site and a new editor, and hopefully this is a better audio experience for you as well as a management experience for me. So this episode is just the character dining experience with no audio issues. There is going to be a brand new episode on Wednesday and a bonus episode on Friday. So let me know if there are any technological issues with that, or you can't hear them because again, it's a yeah, please let me know if you can't hear something, but I'm letting you know that there are going to be episodes. So if there is an issue with the new host or whatever, please let me know, and then hopefully it'll be smooth sailing for 2025. All right, hope you enjoy. Bye. Hey solos. So you're going to Disney World by yourself. Should you make a point to go and have a character dining experience when you are an adult going to Disney World solo? And if you do, what are some ways to maybe make it less awkward, or maybe to make sure you get the photos you want, and like how does it go? Anyway, solo spoiler, of course you should go for character dining, although I do recognize why you might be hesitant to. And in this episode, I'm going to talk about why you should go to character dining, where some character dining spots are, and some tips for doing character dining when you're solo. Hi everyone, it's Samantha. Olaf may not know who Samantha is, but now you do. And welcome to Disney Solo Magic, the #1 podcast for solo travel to Disney World. In this episode, we are continuing the series to talking about characters and traveling to Disney solo. I talked about seeing characters, I talked about meeting characters in last week's episode, and this week it's going to be kind of eating with characters. It's going to be about character dining. Although I totally get why an adult going by themselves might not be totally into the idea of doing character dining. They might think that there's some extra awkwardness around it. I found actually the character dining is actually super fun and awesome to do solo. And if you are kind of hesitant to meet characters in other ways, character dining is such a great way to make sure you're sitting down, eating in air condition, and you get to meet characters and have these kind of cool interactions. So I'm really excited to talk about character dining in this episode. I'm sure you know by now that you can follow this podcast on Apple, Spotify, and on YouTube. And it would be really great if you rated, subscribed, shared. I think there's some other things that you need to do, but I'm sure you know them all by now. But sharing is so great. It is such a great way to, like I've said in so many episodes in the last month, like watch this podcast grow. If you want to support the podcast, you can always buy me a coffee. You can go to buymeacoffee.com/Disney_solo_magic. The link is down below. And that is a great way to support the podcast without me having to put ads or something on the podcast just to like offset the extra podcasting costs, you know? The Buy Me a Coffee setup is set up for $3 American, which is about $5 Canadian. So, you know, the price of a very cheap coffee. This week, when you are listening to this, I'm actually going to be, by the time you are listening to this, I'm going to be in Walt Disney World. So again, make sure you're following me on Instagram so you can see the different things that I'm doing while I'm there. But one of the quote unquote coffees, because again, it's kind of like a metaphor coffee that I have my eye on, is this gingerbread chai milkshake that I have my eye on at Epcot. That's going to be there as part of the International Festival of the Holidays. And I mean, it's way more than $3 American, as most things at Disney are. But that is going to be my coffee of the week. So again, if you want to support me and support the podcast, feel free to go to that link. The link is in the description below. You can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. I'm the most active on Instagram. And if you send me a DM, I love hearing about your trips. And I think that is all the preamble. Like I said, this week I'm going to be at Disney for all the Christmas stuff. I'm going to the Christmas party for the first time, the International Festival of the Holidays. I'm going to do the Christmas tree stroll at Disney Springs. I'm going to check out all the Disney displays at all the different resorts. I'm also staying off-site for one of the nights, which I'm kind of into to like see what that's like. It was such a weird booking experience. I've talked to actually a few solos about this. Like that week was very odd for booking. So I got a very cheap flight if I stayed one extra night, but I couldn't get a hotel on the property. So I'm staying off property, one of the Disney Springs hotels, and I'm kind of interested in seeing what that's going to be like for one night. So fingers crossed it'll be okay. Anything else? No, let's get into it. Character dining. All right, all right. So, character dining. So, I have always thought, it was always my impression that character dining is like the best for kids, right? So, I'm thinking I'm about to prove myself wrong, but please just go with me on this. I was thinking like, oh yeah, if you want your kids to see the princesses, then there's character dining to go see the princesses. If your kids like Winnie the Pooh, then there's places for them to go see Winnie the Pooh. You can get a hug from Mickey if you go to these restaurants. I've always just kind of thought of it as very much a good thing for families to do, to kind of like corral kids and their experiences at one restaurant. Now, I had gone to different character dining restaurants, but it wasn't until like literally this time last year where I fully appreciated how great character dining is as an adult and as solo. So this time last year, I went to Disney World for Dapper Day. And I've talked about Dapper Day a lot. I'm not going this year, actually. I'm leaving the day before Dapper Day. But last year I went for Dapper Day, and a couple months earlier I had hurt my ankle. So even though I was able to kind of walk on my ankle, I knew that I really wasn't going to have the full strength to like spend the whole day kind of walking around. And I also knew that I was going to look amazing, and I was going to have some like pretty cool outfits. So I thought, you know what, a good idea would be for my body would be to like set up a character dining reservation during the day at the parks I was going to be at, and that would give me a chance to sit down, to ice my foot, and also to see characters and get great photos in my outfits, and also to eat, of course. And so I did Hollywood and Vine, which is at MGM Studios. Oh my God. It's at Hollywood Studios. It's the first time I ever ate there because they have a Disney Junior breakfast, and so I always thought of that as just like a kids restaurant. So they have anyway, I'll get into it. So I went into Hollywood and Vine, which have like the OG characters for lunch and for dinner. And then when I was at Animal Kingdom, I went to Tusker's House, and it was the first time for both of those restaurants, and it was so great. The food was really great. I was able to get these great photos. I was able to get these great interactions, and I realized like how wonderful it is to really get like so many bangs for your buck, because again, you're eating, you're sitting, you're in air conditioning, but then you also are able to have these interactions, these one-on-one interactions with the characters that has really been super special. So, when I did that first episode about seeing the characters, and I said like a good entryway into doing character interactions as a solo adult is like watching the entertainment, watching the parades, watching the stage shows, and then you can kind of graduate up to doing meet and greets, and maybe formal meet and greets, as well as like one-offs when they show up at a hotel. And then I said character dining is like the pinnacle of character interactions. But you might want to, or I might want to, switch the order a little bit. There is something about being at a character dining experience that can kind of be a really interesting, like quote unquote, entry level into interacting with the characters. Because if you're feeling awkward or all this stuff, first you can see how other people are interacting with the characters, and your primary goal is like to eat. So even if you're like, oh, I don't know if I should be here, like what am I doing? Well, you're not going to like just turn around and leave the line the way you might at a formal like meet and greet setting. Here you can just be like, oh, I'm going to go get something to eat, and then I'm going to come back, and then Mickey will come by and I'll say hello, and it'll be cool, So if you have this anxiety, which I totally understand, but I don't want it to stop you. If you have this anxiety about meeting the characters, then just kind of like think about what do you want like the best distraction to be? Do you want it to be food? Because like yum. Or do you just want it to be like a regular line that might not be as long as like a dining experience? And as I said in other episodes, and I will say another time in this episode, that the cast members, the staff members know what they're doing more than you know what you're doing. Like, they are so prepared for this. You might not be prepared for it. You might not be prepared to see a character, but they are prepared to see you. And that is a really, really important thing to keep in mind when you're doing a character dining experience, because you might be like, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do. But like, don't worry about that. Like, let the characters, and I've said this a lot, like, match the character's energy, like answer their questions, and then, like, just like an improv, yes and them, right? So if they're like, oh, you enjoying your dinner? Yes. And what do you think? Like, what's your favorite thing to eat here? Or, I don't know, something like that, that just kind of keeps that energy going along. And again, if you're feeling awkward, you can also just be like, and now I'm going to go back to eating. So I want to validate the feelings of awkwardness and anxiety, but I don't want to do so in a way that suggests you shouldn't do anything. And I mean, I hope you know from this podcast by now that that's always my goal, right? To encourage you to go and do these things, even if, or even especially when you're feeling a little anxious. Now, when I was preparing for this episode, I have spent a lot of time thinking about the best way to talk about or organize character dining for you. And to be honest, if we were talking one-on-one and you told me things about your trip, I would probably be able to recommend a couple restaurants really quickly. But I don't know what your criteria are for looking for a character dining experience. So let me just provide an overview. There are 13 different character dining experiences. There's actually a 14th hidden one, quote unquote hidden one, that's at the Four Seasons, which is slightly off property. Matt Richardson, who is a content creator, he's been a guest on this podcast. He's going to be a guest on this podcast a little bit later on as well. He has actually talked about the Four Seasons buffet, character dining buffet. So go over to his account and check out his little video on that. I won't be talking about that too much today, but there's 13 different character dining experiences on the Walt Disney World property, and more than half, I'm just like trying to think in my math head right now, more than half are at hotels. So what's really interesting is if you go to Walt Disney World by yourself and maybe you don't actually want to get tickets, like maybe you just want a hotel for the night. Oh God, I love a hotel. Or maybe you're in Orlando for a conference, but you want to get some like Disney magic. You can do a lot of the character dining at these hotels, and they are, I don't even want to compare them to the ones in the park. They're all equally good and they all have their own pros and cons. And so just kind of keep that in mind. You don't need to go into the parks for character dining. Early on in this podcast, I talked about different types of restaurants. I talked about how there were a la carte restaurants where you are picking things from a menu, just like a normal restaurant. I talked about how there were prix-fixe menus when the price is fixed. And that means that you have one set price and then there are like 2 or 3 entrees you can choose from, 2 or 3 appetizers you can choose from, 2 or 3 desserts you can choose from. But the price is fixed, and then the menu is also very fixed. I talked about how there were buffet restaurants, and I talked about how there were family style restaurants when like a platter of food comes out, you don't really get a choice, and everyone in the family, everyone that is sitting at the table can pick and choose, and then they just kind of keep filling up that platter, right? It's all you care to eat. Now, I maintain that family style isn't great for solos, but I'm not going to talk too much about that in this episode because, again, the characters might outweigh the experience of family style. So I'm going to put that aside. Now, all of the character dining experiences have a set price. And so whether it is a buffet, whether it is prix-fixe, whether it is family style, you are going to be paying one price, which means there aren't any character dining restaurants where it's just a la carte. Like, don't think that there is a character dining experience where you're like, oh, I'm just going to go in and order an appetizer and a dessert and like that's it to like save money. No. No, Disney has the formula. It is going to be a set price. So you can go to a character dining experience that is, like I said, prefix. So it is one menu. There is a set price, but you choose from a couple different entrees, a couple different appetizers, etc. Then there's buffets, which are quite popular with character dining. And then there's also family style character dining, where there's like one big platter that comes in and then everyone in a family can choose from. Again, not great for solos, but it's still very much an all-you-can-eat type of experience. So even if you are there for a family style and you're like, I want more eggs or I want more bacon, they'll bring it out, even if you don't have a whole family to share it with. Don't worry about that. Now, because all of the character dining experiences have one set price, if you compare it to other dining experiences that are like the same meal of the day, for example, character dining will undoubtedly be more expensive. So keep that in mind. You're always going to pay that extra premium for interacting with and seeing the characters. And so if you are there on a budget, think about whether or not that is worth it for you. Now, I actually think that if you are there, even when you're there on a budget, that there is something about character dining that's really, really special. And so I definitely don't want to encourage you to go into debt or to break your budget to do character dining, but think about whether or not it might be a really special experience as part of your solo vacation to ensure that maybe you have like a cheaper lunch and then a cheaper dinner, but you do one of these really nice character dining experiences as a way to maximize your budget. So keep that in mind, but know that they are always a little bit more expensive. Now, I mentioned there, maybe you have like a cheaper lunch or a cheaper dinner, but you have your big character dining breakfast. So character dining is available for all 3 meals of the day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. However, there are the most options for character dinings at breakfast. In fact, there are a couple restaurants that don't even have character dining for lunch and dinner, even though they're open. So also remember that. I'm thinking of Topolino's Terrace, for example. They only have a character breakfast. Whereas if you go for lunch or dinner, even though it's in the same location and you get the same level of service and not the same menu because it's not a breakfast menu, you get the same level of service and the same beautiful views, it's definitely not a character experience. So again, keep that in mind. You're going to have a lot of options. Well, you're going to have 13 different options, but a lot of those are breakfast options. Now, the places that have dinner options usually also have a lunch option. And sometimes you will hear a tip that's like, if you go for the very last breakfast reservation, you can get some of the lunch stuff too. And so that's something to keep in mind. But usually the lunch and the dinner menus are pretty much the same. So another way to think about it is that there are usually 2 different menus. One is breakfast, one is lunch and dinner. Not all the restaurants have the lunch and dinner menu, but there are a lot of restaurants that have a breakfast menu. And so if you want the most options for character dining, look at breakfast options. Now I'm just going to do an overview of the different character dining locations, and then I'm going to talk about some tips of going to any of these solo. So let's start at Magic Kingdom. There are 2 different options for character dining at Magic Kingdom. Like I said, there's actually character dining at all 4 parks, and at Magic Kingdom there are 2 locations. Actually, there's kind of 3 locations. But I don't consider it character dining, and actually Disney doesn't consider it character dining either, but I will get to that in 1 second. Now, what's interesting is that even though there are 2.5 character dining experiences at Magic Kingdom, you cannot eat with Mickey and Friends at Magic Kingdom, but you can eat with Mickey and Friends at the other 3 parks. So there you go. The first character dining experience is Cinderella's Royal Table. It is right in that castle, and it is full princess royalty glory. When you walk in from the main level, you meet and greet Cinderella, and then when you go upstairs, there's a whole contingent of princesses that come around to your table and greet you and things like that. Now, they have been doing meet and greets with Cinderella at Cinderella's Royal Table since they opened in 1971. I have a picture of my grandmother and a friend of hers with Cinderella and the prince in the early 70s. And what is so special is that when I went for my birthday a few years ago, I recreated that same shot with the same wallpaper in the same location as the photograph that we have of my grandmother. And that was really special. And actually it was really cute because this was still during COVID, and so the princesses weren't coming around to the table. They were just coming out and waving. And so I was showing this photograph to the wait staff, and we were talking about where it could have been. And the waiter said something about the woman who was Cinderella in the picture, and I was like, what? Sorry, are you saying that the Cinderella we just saw is not the same Cinderella in this photograph? And he's like, oh my God, no, of course I'm not saying that. There's only one Cinderella. And it's just kind of cute, like the continuity of these memories and these experiences, even though people change, but the characters don't. And to like share both that understanding with one of the cast members who actually, that particular waiter had been with Disney for decades, was pretty special. So there you go, Cinderella's Royal Table. The other place is the Crystal Palace, and that's where you can meet Winnie the Pooh and all his friends. I have never eaten there because Winnie the Pooh's like not one of my like main characters. I just was like, I don't know if I need to, go and meet him. But it's increasingly become one of the restaurants I really want to try. And that is because of you, Solos. So many of you are big Winnie the Pooh fans. And I've seen so many pictures of Solos who have just really enjoyed their time there. So that's definitely a place I want to try, but I've never been there. Now, I have been, like I said, to Cinderella's Royal Table a few times. And that has been, every time has been a really great experience. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Let me continue that overview first. Let's go over to Epcot. Oh, before we go over to Epcot, let me tell you that half one. So at the Beauty and the Beast restaurant, you're in Beast Castle. And when I was there in not August, but maybe May, so not that long ago, the Beast comes out and he walks around the dining room and he waves at people. There aren't any interactions, but you get to see the Beast. Now, I read that they had changed it back, like because it was something else before COVID. They changed it back so now you can go and meet the Beast following your meal or maybe before your meal. To be honest, I'm glad that Disney does not identify it as a character dining experience because it is not anything I would like go out of my way to go and do. I know a lot of people have had really lukewarm, literally, experiences at Beauty and the Beast, the Be Our Guest restaurant. Like the food comes out lukewarm. I have generally had very good experiences. I would definitely recommend going, especially if you're a Beauty and the Beast fan, but I would not recommend going to like see the Beast. It's not worth it. There isn't enough Beast to like say, oh yeah, I'm going to go to see the Beast. So anyway, let's go over to Epcot now. There are also two character dining experiences at Epcot. And you want to know something, Solos? I've never been to either of them. And what's so interesting is that my cousin, who's been to Disney once, like maybe 20 years ago, was explaining one of the restaurants to me. And I was like, no, you're wrong. That doesn't exist. And he's like, I'm pretty sure it exists. And then the next time I was at Epcot, I was like, oh, he was very right. So the one that he was very right about was Garden Grill. It is in the Land Pavilion at Epcot, and it is a family-style meal for breakfast, lunch, and dinner in which you get to see like the OG characters, including Mickey. And they're in their little like farmer outfits, which is adorable. And there are elements of your meal that come from the like Living with the Land Pavilion. And the idea is just kind of like homegrown American food. The restaurant slowly rotates, very slowly rotates. So you do get to see elements of the Living with the Land ride at some point during your meal. In particular, the part that you get to see is, it's like very dark and watery, not like where the fish are before that, when they're like telling the stories about like, and now we're in the rainforest and blah, 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 blah. You can actually look up and see the restaurant right there. So you can see the restaurant while you're eating and looking down as well. Now, I have heard such amazing things about the character interactions at this restaurant, especially when you're going solo. I have heard that Mickey and Minnie and the Chip and Dale characters, they come and they'll sit with you sometimes and they'll take pictures and all that stuff. Now, I'm not like a big like American food person, and especially if I'm going by myself, like I can't eat a family style platter of bacon and eggs. And there's so much good food at Epcot that I am not really that interested in like sitting down for turkey and green beans for lunch or dinner as well. So I have never eaten there because I'm just not interested in the food. And I'm also like, even though the idea of their little like farmer outfits is super cute, I'm also not overly excited about that aesthetic to like go out of my way for Garden Grill. So if there were people that were like super into that type of food and wanted to see the characters, I would definitely go with them, but on my own. And that's what's so nice about going solo as well, right? Like on my own, I can skip it. That's totally fine. So I haven't gone there, but I have heard really good things, especially if that type of like homestyle American food is a type of cuisine that you're really into. The other really special character dining experience is Akershus Royal Banquet Hall, and that is in the Norway Pavilion, and that is a princess dining experience. That restaurant is also open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and what's kind of special about going for breakfast is that it opens earlier than the rest of World Showcase, so you can kind of like go and be there quietly before the rest of the Epcot guests will come and get to enjoy World Showcase. Now, that's not to say that the breakfast will be quiet, because I know that a lot of little princesses and little princes will go for breakfast. So I have a feeling, because I've never been here either, that it could probably be a little busy inside. But the idea of just kind of like being at World Showcase with not a lot of people sounds really kind of nice as well. Now, the reason why I've never been here is because I'm also not like super into the food. So for lunch and for dinner, they have this like family style platter of bread and cheese and mashed potatoes and chicken, and all of that sounds delicious. Like, don't get me wrong, but the like Norwegian food is also not really a food I gravitate towards, and because it's family style, I just never thought it would be a super good value for money. But for me, you can do whatever you want, obviously, because I definitely want to go and check it out to see all the princesses. But I don't know. I've had such great experiences at Cinderella's Royal Table that I feel like I get my princess dining fix without having to go to Akershus. So I've never been there, but that is also family style. Did I say Garden Grill was family style? Yes, and so is Akershus. Okay, let's go over to Hollywood Studios. Hollywood and Vine is, like I said at the beginning of this episode, a restaurant I just went to for the first time this time last year, and I've already gone once more in the last year because I enjoyed it so much. This is a buffet restaurant, and for breakfast, they have different characters than they do for lunch and for dinner. So I would say probably for you solos listening, there's no reason to go for breakfast. It's the Disney Junior stars. I mean, I could not even pick any of those out of a lineup to like let you know who it is. But for lunch and for dinner, it is Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse and Pluto and Goofy. Did I see Donald as well? Yeah, I think Donald as well. Maybe not Goofy and maybe Donald. I don't know. I kind of get all of those extra OG characters kind of like muddled in my brain because I'm just like, oh, I got to see them, but I didn't like stick in my brain. Anyway, it was such a great character interaction. That is a buffet. I found the food delicious. I was frankly, I was quite surprised. I wasn't expecting much from the restaurant. I don't know why. And like I said, Mickey and Minnie and Pluto and Donald, they come around to your tables and they take pictures and they interact. And then there's like certain spots, which is what they're doing is actually rotating the cast. Sorry, spoiler alert. There are these certain points where a song will come on and they'll dance around the restaurant and then they'll say goodbye and then they'll come right back out. It's different cast members. But it's kind of a fun, good experience. Like I said, it is a buffet. And what is really cool about this restaurant, although I expected it to be reflected in the food more than it was is that the characters actually have different outfits throughout the year. So at Christmas time, they have Christmas outfits. Then in January, February, they have kind of like Oscar Hollywood glam outfits. In the summer, they have this summer outfit. And then in September, October, they have their Halloween outfits. Now, I found a dress that looked exactly like the print on Minnie Mouse's dress for the summer dress that she was wearing. And so I was so excited, and I bought it to wear specifically at that restaurant when I went in August. But then I realized, oh no, August, the end of August, early September, it is Halloween to Disney World. And so they were wearing their Halloween outfits. So I was like, look, Minnie Mouse, I'm wearing the matching dress. And she's like, oh yeah, great. And I was so proud of this outfit too. And I mentioned to a cast member, I was like, see, this is the dress that Minnie was wearing like a week ago. And actually this really great cast member, he was like, yeah, it is. Okay, I don't know if he really cared. But then he said, you should come in January, February, March, because they have these new Hollywood glam outfits. And he said, he's like, someone like me who's really into films are my passion, those are my favorite costumes that they wear. And so I was like, okay. So I am determined to go back and see them in those costumes because that cast member spoke so highly of them. So definitely go check that out. That was a really great restaurant. And finally, Animal Kingdom, they have Tusker House, which again is a character dining with the OG characters. Mickey, Minnie, Donald, and Daisy, which is really cool in their safari outfits. But at Christmas time, too, they have a little overlay that's like a Christmas overlay. This is a buffet as well. The food is a little bit more quote-unquote exotic because it's in the Africa area of Animal Kingdom. And I definitely enjoyed the greater variety of food at this buffet. So there you go. Let's talk really quickly about some character dining experiences at the hotels, because like I said, there are really special experiences there too. And, again, I was talking about budget, right? Maybe it's not like, maybe you want to take your budget money, Maybe you want to take the money in your budget and put it towards a character dining experience at one of the hotels, and then do a crawl through the other hotels or through Disney Springs rather than buy a park ticket. Like maybe just being in the magic of Disney but not actually going to the parks is good enough for your solo trip, because that sounds amazing. And so that extra little bit of money that you quote unquote save by not getting a park ticket can go towards character dining. So that's something to think about if you're interested. But I've really loved my character dining experiences at the hotels. And also when you kind of roll out of there because you're so full, there's something nice about walking around the other hotels or just the different locations before you do your next thing of the day is kind of nice too. So let's start at Cape May Cafe. Cape May Cafe is at the Beach Club Resort. So the Beach Club and the Yacht Club are attached, but the Cape May Cafe is in the Beach Club area. It's also across from the boardwalk. They are open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but there's only a character experience at breakfast. This is a buffet, and the outfits that they're wearing are like seaside outfits, and you get to see Minnie, and you get to see Donald and Daisy and Mickey and Goofy. You got to see them all, and you got to have breakfast. And there was an omelet station, and it was I've been to the restaurant a couple times. I've only been to the character restaurant once, but it was just so much fun. And in fact, the characters kept coming back because we were there at one of the last reservation spots. So the characters had more time to walk around, more time in their shift, but fewer tables. And it was just really, really awesome to interact with them, see them in these different outfits. It was really cool. And the food was delicious. Chef Mickey's is another really, really popular character dining experience. It's a buffet. It's at the Contemporary Resort. People talk about this all the time. And usually they talk about it pretty negatively. They say that the food isn't great and it's really loud. And you do get to see Mickey and the gang in their little chef outfits. But I've never been because I've only heard kind of negative things. And even if they're not entirely true, I don't know. I'm not interested in like proving it right or wrong, actually. I can imagine Chef Mickey's being in kind of like one of those big open areas at the Contemporary Resort. It would probably be very loud and chaotic. And so, yeah, even though character dining is fun, it's not necessarily appealing to me. But you do you, Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo. You might be really into like seeing Mickey and friends in their little chef's outfit. Again, that's also a buffet. A new character dining experience that just reopened is 1900 Park Fair, and that is at the Grand Floridian. That is also a buffet, and it is open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Now, when it was opened pre-COVID, it had like Cinderella and the prince and the stepsisters and the evil stepmother, which amazing. However, they kind of changed it up a bit, and now all of the characters have like a through line of wishes. I don't know. It's a little weak, the storyline behind the storyline. But you get to see Aladdin, which is really cool. You get to see Tiana, which is amazing, as well as like Mirabelle, which very, very cool, and Cinderella and some of the other characters. So it's a really cool place to be able to see kind of different characters. Actually, I don't mean different characters. I mean like characters that aren't like newer characters that don't have as much kind of visibility in other places. I don't know. I mean, like Mickey, you can see Mickey in a lot of places, but you can't see Aladdin in a lot of places. So that's what I mean. It is open for breakfast and it is open for dinner. It is not open for lunch. It is a buffet, like I said, and it is at the Grand Floridian. Another breakfast option is at Ohana, which is right next to the Grand Floridian. They have the Lilo and Stitch characters for the breakfast only. So while Ohana is open for breakfast and dinner, they only have characters at the breakfast, and it is family style. Now, I have not been here because, number one, I don't really know Lilo and Stitch. And also, like, what is up with Stitch? Like, why do people love this character so much? I do not understand. And the only reason why I'm saying this out loud is because Disney Bound Solo, another content creator who did a podcast with me, and I follow her, she said that on Threads, and she has yet to get an answer, and so I am looking for an answer for her and for me. Also, family style, not great for solos, but the main reason I've never been to Ohana is because I have an allergy to pineapple, and so it just would not make sense for me to go for all those reasons. But I know people love it, and if you are a Lilo and Stitch fan, that is super cool. I'm super happy for you. You should definitely go and check out that character dining because other than a few locations, special locations like to see Stitch, you really can't like interact with those characters that much. You might be able to more because there's going to be a live action movie coming out, but right now that's a great place to see them. Now, I saved the best two for last, I think. And the first one is Topolino's Terrace, and that is at the Riviera Resort. It's at the very top of the tower, and they have a character dining breakfast that is a prefix. So you're choosing from a menu, and the characters are Mickey and Minnie and Donald and Daisy, and they're all artists, different types of artists. So sculpting and dancing and painting, and the food is delicious. And the views are amazing. This is a very hard reservation to get, though, and I would just keep checking. It is kind of hard to go to Riviera by like Uber, for example. If you wanted to go, you really need a reservation, but of course you can always get there via Skyliner. I say this because it is worth going to like check if you can do like a walk-up, because I actually think that you probably could get a table for a walk-up very easy, but like right now I'm looking as I'm talking to you 4 different reservations for one, and nothing's coming up. It's tricky, but I think as a walk-up you could go, and I would actually highly, highly recommend it because it is a delicious meal and the character interactions are really, really fun. The other really special one that I see a lot of solos asking about is the storybook dining at Artist Point with Snow White. And I think maybe so many solos ask about it because it does seem like a bit of a more adult dining experience. And it kind of is. In fact, the Artist Point restaurant, which is at the Wilderness Lodge, when it first opened for the longest time, I can't remember when it switched, but it was actually a signature dining restaurant. And I guess it just, I guess they, frankly, I guess they knew they could make more money if they put a couple characters in it and they ran it as a character dining experience. And it's actually really cool in there. The whole setup of the restaurant is like you're kind of in a forest, so there's all these fake trees. It's really beautiful. And then Snow White comes around and a couple of the different dwarfs, Grumpy and Dopey. And then there is the evil queen, and she doesn't come around to the tables. You get called up and you go to her, and it's a really cool experience. And then there's like this part, every 45 minutes where they do a dance, and I don't really love that. It kind of throws off the kind of more like adult vibe, but whatever, it's fun for the kids. This is a prix-fixe menu, which means that there is a menu and there's like 3 different choices and you can choose which one of those 3 choices. It's not a buffet, it's not family style, but it doesn't have a lot of choice like it would at a regular restaurant. The food I have found has always actually been kind of lukewarm. Like literally, I've never found it super hot, but the cast members have always been really great to get me tried to get me a replacement that's hotter. Hasn't always worked. Like it comes back the exact same temperature, for example, but it is a beautiful restaurant. I highly, highly recommend going, and that is only available for dinner. Okay, so that overview, God, whenever I think to myself, I'll just do a quick overview. It's never quick. There's just so many options, right? And like, that's why solos, even if you're like, oh, I don't know if I really need a solo trip. I go with my family, or, I went once a few years ago. I probably don't need to go again. There's just so many things that you can do when you're there. And when you go solo, you have so much more freedom to kind of explore them. Like there are so many choices, but the choices aren't so many that you just like wind up eating at McDonald's every day. Even though if that is what you want to do, that's totally cool. And actually the McDonald's that is just outside the All-Star hotels, and if you were staying at the All-Star hotels, you can actually walk to that McDonald's that was designed to be able to walk there from the All-Stars. And that McDonald's actually has some really cool like sustainability elements of the architecture. So if that is what you want to do, that's awesome. But you can get so overwhelmed by choice that you're like, oh, I'll just get the easiest option. But I know that there are a lot of options, but it's not like there are so many options that you can't make a decision necessarily. So if you're like, okay, well, I want to do a character dining experience for dinner and I really want to see all of the like OG characters, then that really kind of narrows down your options. So if those were your criteria, for example, what comes to mind is Hollywood and Vine at Hollywood Studios. You get to see the OG characters and they have dinner. You can also do Tusker House, or you can do Garden Grill at Animal Kingdom or at Epcot, because again, they also will have the OG characters and have dinner. And if you didn't want to go to the park, but you wanted to do character dining for dinner, then there's actually only one option, which is Chef Mickey, which is great. I know I said like, oh, I don't know if I'd be into it, but like, that's awesome. You're a contemporary resort. Like, how bad could it be, right? I mean, all of these are like, how bad could it be? Or let's say, oh, okay, like I'm really interested in seeing princesses. Like, where should I go? Like, I want to make the most of my day. Where should I go? Then you have 2 options for seeing princesses. Actually, you have 3. Your 2 main options are at Magic Kingdom or at Epcot. So at Cinderella's Royal Table or Akershus. And at both of these restaurants, you'll get to see a ton of princesses. So then the choice is, do you want to just order from a prix-fixe menu, like off a menu, but you're just choosing from a couple different options? Or do you want to have a few more options on your table, like family style? Because at Cinderella's Royal Table, you have your prix-fixe from a menu, whereas Akershus, you have the family style. The other option, though, of course, for a dinner is that you can also go to 1900 Park Fair. You don't get to see all the princesses, but you'll get to see Mirabelle and you'll get to see Cinderella, and that is a buffet. So that's an option too. So again, like, even though there are a lot of options, when you start narrowing down what you actually want to see, or who you want to see, or what you want to eat, or the type of restaurant you like, it actually gets kind of narrow, which is nice to be like, perfect. Like, I want to see Winnie the Pooh, Crystal Palace. That's the one for me. So that leads into some tips really well. So the first tip when you're choosing character dining as a solo is like, to decide what you want. Like, who do you want to see? What kind of food do you want to eat? What kind of restaurant, like, menu setup do you want to eat at? And another quality for me is like, especially with like Mickey and the gang, like, what outfits do I want to see them in? Like, I chose Cape May Cafe because I really wanted to see them in that outfit. And then when I have learned since that, like, at Hollywood and Vine, they change their outfits all the time, then I'm like, oh, now I want to see them in all their different outfits. So you can kind of like think about, who you want to see, the type of food that you want, things like that. In all these cases, I mean, I guess except for Crystal Palace and Ohana, like, the reason why I haven't eaten at some of the character dining restaurants is because I'm not interested in that food choice, and I know I can see those characters elsewhere. So with like Ohana and Crystal Palace, because I'm not super connected to those characters, I haven't gone out of my way to go and see those characters. But like the other characters I'm really interested in, I can go see them in a couple different restaurants even if I don't like that food, right? So I can see princesses at Royal Table even if I don't like the food at Akershus. I get to still see princesses, and who doesn't want to see princesses? You know what I mean? Okay, the other thing is that a lot of people with character dining are worried that the characters are going to come around to your table and you're not going to be there. So in all the cases, except for the Evil Queen at Snow White's Artist Point, that restaurant, you stay stationary and the characters come around to you. And so a lot of people are always worried, like, what if I'm getting my food and the characters are going to pass me by? Now, this fear is like a little bit bigger for solos because it's not like you are going to have a whole bunch of other people at your table, like, holding the spot. So when a character comes by, they can be like, oh, no, so-and-so is coming. Like, don't worry, Look, don't worry about that. It is their job. Those characters have one job, and that job is to pose for pictures with every single person at that restaurant. And they know how to do that better than you know how to wait for them. So do not worry. The characters all have character attendants, plus a supervisor for all of the character attendants, plus themselves, plus all of the wait staff that keep an eye on the table rotation to make sure that everyone gets a chance to see the characters. I have been at every single character dining experience I have been, as I'm doing this Rolodex memory in my head as I'm speaking, there has been a supervisor or a wait staff that has come up and said, oh, did you get a chance to meet so-and-so yet? And if I say no, they're like, okay, no problem. And they will make sure that character comes out. You know, when I said that, like, some of the restaurants will have like a little song and the characters will dance around and it's really just a shift change, you might panic at that point because you might be like, oh, they went in the back room. Like, my table was next. I'm never going to meet them now. No, that's not how that works. They come up and they pick up just as they left off. And again, if you think by some weird fluke of a schedule that your table was missed, you just have to politely tell your waitstaff or one of the character attendants, and they will make sure that you get to see all of the characters. So don't worry about going up to a buffet and like worrying whether or not the characters are going to come out or not. It is totally fine. In fact, like I said, there's these different types of restaurants, right? Sometimes they bring the food to you. Sometimes you have to go to the food like a buffet. I kind of like the character dining buffets because when you get up, you get to see like where the characters are and you get to see other interactions with tables. And for me, that's a really nice like reminder of how I can also interact with the characters when they come around to my own location. Whereas like when there's food that's brought to your table, you're like one spoonful of like eggs in your mouth. You're like, okay, give me 1 second, So it's totally fine. They know this better than you. Now, this past week, I actually saw a little like Instagram reel from a former cast member who used to be friends with some of the princesses. And by saying friends, that's a euphemism. That's a way that Disney cast members will say that they played those characters. They said that they said that all the characters, but she was talking about princesses, are not ever supposed to come to tables when there is like wait staff already there, like taking your order or checking on your table, or if there's menus on the table, because that kind of signifies that you're not quite ready to begin the meal. Now, she said that of course it does happen when you will like pass the server as you're going to see the table, but generally the idea is to make sure you have really good interactions with the visitors, and then that means to make sure that you see everybody, but that you aren't going to do that as a character when someone's getting their order taken, for example. And of course solos, although I don't think I really need to tell you this, but be nice to cast members. So if you think that a character has missed you, don't like freak out at a server or character attendant to be like, I never got to see so-and-so. Look, you just say, hey, I don't think I got to see so-and-so. And they will make it happen. Like, don't worry. You don't need to like, again, I don't really feel like I need to tell you this, but you don't need to bring like your entitled hat to the request. You actually are entitled to see the characters. You just have to politely let people know when that doesn't happen, and they will make it happen for you. Always. That's literally their job. Okay, the other tip is about photos. So at character dining, by and large, there are no PhotoPass photographers. And that's really frustrating when you go solo, because that means you don't have like a built-in photographer to make sure you have these really great photos of you and the characters. Now, there's a couple different ways to strategize this. So one, you can definitely ask a server, a character attendant, anyone you want that works there, or even maybe the table next to you, can you get a photo of me with the characters when they come by? Again, all the cast members want you to have a great time, and so they definitely will accommodate that. Now, if you're saying that to a server, they might be on the other side of the restaurant when the characters come by, and I know, like, personally, that would stress me out a little bit. So that is a great option. You should definitely ask people to take photos for you, but have some backup ideas as well. So the other backup is I've just started like loving selfies with the characters for sure. Like that's always so much fun. But the other thing that I really like to do, because I love the outfits, I love the costumes that the characters are wearing, is I'll say, can I get a shot of your outfit? Can I get a shot of your dress? Can I get a shot of like these details on your bow tie? And then they'll pose for you. So while I have very few full shots of me and the characters from character dining, I have a lot of really fun selfies and a lot of fun shots and videos of the characters, much more than any other character interaction that I have in like the meet and greets and stuff like that. So I've just really gone out of my way to now like think of things to ask the characters to do, to pose, to show me, and things like that. And then I can capture a picture of that. And therefore, in my brain, my experience is about that interaction, even if it's not totally caught on camera, because I don't necessarily have a picture of them and me doing it, if that makes sense. Whereas like when I do character meet and greets, formal ones, and there's a PhotoPass photographer, there might be a ton of photos of like me just talking to a character. And now with the character dining, like those pictures aren't captured, but really cool pictures of like Minnie showing me her gloves are captured. So there's that as well. That leads into the next tip about how do you interact with these characters, especially the non-speaking characters, when you're going to character dining. So again, I always keep in mind that I want these other kind of interesting pictures. So one of the questions that I often ask, especially when they're wearing like outfits I've never seen before, and again, I'm thinking about Hollywood and Vine, is like, what's your favorite element of your outfit? Or did you make this outfit yourself? yourself. Or at Cape May Cafe once, I said to Donald, like, well, how come your outfit isn't as nice as Mickey's? And then he did this like pantomime of Daisy, and it was like this kind of really cool storyline actually that was like pulled through a couple of the different characters. So remember that you can talk and interact with them as much as possible. Now, I said in the last episode, like, don't go in with these set ideas of things you're going to say, because they will usually guide you through the interaction. At character dining, though, it might be a little bit different. It might be kind of nice to have some things you are talking to them about, so that it just kind of keeps the interaction going. And having a camera, for example, is a really great way of doing that. So again, another Hollywood and Vine example. The cast members changed midway through the meal, and I saw Pluto walking around, and I'm not really big dog fan, so I was like, I don't really care if I see Pluto or not. I'm really here to see Mickey and Minnie, like, it doesn't really matter. So they do their little song and dance, and then the characters disappear, and then they come back out, and it's clearly a different Pluto than there was 2 minutes before, because I was like watching Pluto walk around with other characters or other tables, and I was like, oh, I don't really need to see Pluto. So all of a sudden this totally new Pluto comes out and I said, like, I thought you missed me. I thought you missed me because you knew I didn't like dogs. And again, this cast member definitely had more energy than the last cast member, and all of a sudden they were like pantomiming how great dogs were and encouraging me to pet their nose, and it was just so charming. So even though I said with formal meet and greets, don't go in with like something set to say, like, definitely work with the characters' energy when they come to you, because they're going to lead you through the interaction. With this one, I actually would encourage you to be a little bit more quote unquote prepared by just kind of imagining how you could extend that interaction by commenting on something that they're wearing or something that they're doing or something you saw them do at another part of the restaurant. And again, it really extends. And I said in the last episode about meeting characters, like, comment on things in the set, because that really helps draw the story together in your interaction. And that's why also commenting on things that they're wearing is a good way to do that as well, because you don't want to set the character cast member up to not be prepared to answer your question, and they'll be aware of the story and the details in their costumes that they're wearing. And so that's a kind of a good way to kind of extend that interaction a little bit more. And of course, you can also like tell them about yourself and about your own outfit that you're wearing or your own pins, and then they'll be like, oh, look at that pin, blah blah blah. I don't know, it always surprises me how charming character interactions are. It always surprises me. Now, I've told this story a few times, so apologies, but I'm going to tell it one more time. I'm going to talk about Cinderella's Royal Table again. So I've been to Cinderella's Royal Table as an adult about 3 times now, and it has been really, really special experiences. Not only because I like to recreate that shot of my grandmother, and I've done that on my birthday a few years, and again, it's just because my grandmother has passed away, so it's a nice way to kind of connect with her spirit. But the last time I was there, I was eating solo, and it was on my birthday. And again, I've told this story before, but in my brain, I was like, I'm not going to make too big of a deal of it. I'm going to wear my birthday button, obviously, but like, I'm not going to really encourage a lot of conversations with the princesses, because like it might seem awkward that I'm there by myself. But like, no, every princess came up, they commented on something I was wearing, they commented on my birthday, and I just remember like Jasmine like walking over, just like all cool and confident the way Jasmine is, and just like starting a conversation, and it was so great. And then again, I'm trying to like play it cool, right? Because it's my birthday and I'm an adult and whatever. And I remember Snow White came by and she's like, can I give you a hug? Again, I know I've told this story so many times solo, but it was just such a magical moment of connection with these characters. And even though I don't really have any super great photos of that dinner, like I didn't think the selfies turned out that great. I hadn't really thought about asking the princesses to pose in their outfits. I have so many really wonderful memories about celebrating my birthday with the whole contingent of princesses. It was just so magical. And that's what character dining can really do. And doing it solo is, when you're there solo, you are never really there solo because you are there in the larger narrative and storyline of Disney. And when characters see you and you're there by yourself, they want to encourage you to be a part of that storyline. So there was nothing about that dinner that made me feel alone because the princesses really brought me into their own story. And in doing so, I was able to bring them into my story by sharing this particular story numerous times. So definitely go for it if you are on the fence about character dining. Because look, at the very least, you're going to get a good meal. The very least, like if you're trying to choose which character dining to do and you're on the fence about it and you're worried and you're kind of nervous and you're anxious, like just pick a restaurant you want to eat at. and then the princesses can just, or the characters can just be a really fun bonus. 2 quick things I want to say before I say goodbye. Number 1, you can get signatures and things like that. However, at the end of all the character dining meals, they'll give you a little card, a pre-printed card that is a souvenir from the particular dining experience with those character signatures on them. So don't feel like you need to bring anything to autograph because you will get these pre-printed cards, and I have a nice little collection of them now. So try to, start your own collection. The other thing is that when you are making your dining reservations, feel free to look for not only tables for 1, but tables for 2. So remember, if you are going and you're by yourself, they're going to put you at a table for 2 anyway. So I don't ever feel any sort of qualms about booking a table for 2, even if it's just going to be me, because that I'm not taking away that table from anybody else. It's a computer brain that is making these calculations about what things are available and what things are not. And so that computer brain only has a certain amount of tables for 1, but has more tables for 2. So feel free to book a table for 2 when you're making your reservations. And then when you go to check in, you just modify it to say it's only for 1. And that's never been a problem. Now, there is Cinderella's Royal Table is one exception because you have to prepay when you make that reservation. And in that case, I would call Disney and I would make your reservation over the phone with them. And they're always really helpful. And that way you don't need to prepay for two meals. And you'll still get a chance to be able to enjoy dinner at the castle. You can also try walk-ups for all these restaurants as well. I never really done that, but I mean, I think as a solo, it's such a great option. I'm also a Virgo. I'm not only a solo, I'm also a Virgo. So I like to have a plan, if you know what I mean. All right, I think that is it. Please let me know if you have any questions, if I missed something. This episode is very long, but I hope you found it entertaining if you got to this end. Now, I will be at Disney World, like I said, by the time you are listening to this, so make sure you're following me on Instagram, and again, the links are in the description below. Make sure you're following me on Instagram to see what I am up to Christmassy. So next week's episode is going to be something Christmassy. The idea for the rest of December is to really just kind of bring some Disney Christmas vibes to you. So I'm really excited for that. The episode may not be out on Tuesday, though. It might be out on Wednesday because I get back at 1 a.m. on Saturday, and then I have our family Christmas that evening. So I have a feeling I'm going to be very tired to edit an episode. But anyway, it will definitely be coming unless I get crazily sick again. And then the rest of this month, like I said, are going to be some Christmas Disney vibes, but I also have a really awesome solo story coming up about someone's experience at Disneyland Paris, which actually was not a great experience, but really inspirational too, just about how you bring the magic to Disney. And yeah, it was a really great conversation. I can't wait to share that with you. All right, until next time, bye solos. Hey solos, it's Samantha. I hope you enjoyed this episode and all the episodes of Disney Solo Magic, the #1 podcast for solo travel to Disney World. If you want to support the podcast, the best way to do it is to buy me a coffee. The link to my Buy Me a Coffee page is in the description below, and I really, really appreciate that support to get me caffeinated through another week of podcast recording and editing. However, if you don't want to buy me a coffee, that's super cool as well. The other ways you can support this podcast is just to make sure that you rate, review, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and or YouTube. And to make sure that other people know about this podcast by sharing your favorite episodes or some tips and tricks and tagging me. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads, and the best way to get in touch with me directly is through a direct message on Instagram. I can't wait to continue creating this content for you. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.